That was the best thing that happened all day.
Oh my God, we all went at the same time. Ooh, welcome to the women your mother warned you about. Welcome, Jeff.
I'm not going to make any references to hitting the button. I'm not going to do anything like that.
But why not?
This is the place to do it.
Yeah, you can do it here.
Oh, man. I listened to the episode with Nikki Braffman yesterday when I was in the airport, and I was like, oh, man, which way do I go? Got to remember who my target audience is. Got to remember that my mom might listen to this.
All that. Hey, Warners, welcome to another episode of The Women Your Mother Warned You About.
The podcast that keeps business sexy again.
I'm Gina and Rachel, master sales trainer at Sales Gravy, which is also the sponsor of this show.
Woo woo. I'm Rachel Pitts, mommy, wifey, and mortgage loan officer at U.S. Mortgage Corporation and creator of Your UltraFit Lifestyle. Super happy to be here today.
Yeah, you are. This episode is juicy, I think, with Jeff Bajorek. Oh my gosh, we never even talked about my lasagna recipe. I just realized that.
Just so you guys understand, Jeff really wants Gina's lasagna recipe.
He really, really does. And I promised I would give it to him. I guess I'm going to have to give it to him at Outbound. Gosh, that did not sound right. How that just came out of my mouth.
Well, there's a lot of things that don't sound right on this podcast, but that's kind of how we roll. So,
and people still listen and people still sponsor. So there's that.
We have fun, but you guys will love Jeff. First of all, he's got a super sexy voice, and we appreciate his lovely wife, Laura, letting us borrow him for a little bit.
A little bit about Jeff. Jeff is a sales trainer and consultant, author of 2 books, The 5 Forgotten Fundamentals of Prospecting and When It Goes Sideways, and the host of 2 podcasts, The Why and The Buy, which I have been on, and Deeper Thought, which makes me think about his headshot with his hand under his chin, looking very thoughtful. You'll have to go look at that. There are only a few things you can do to sell more, but a lot of things can get in the way. Jeff removes those barriers by helping you rethink the way you sell. What did you think of this episode?
I think that I want more of Jeff in another episode is what I think. We go into some really interesting topics about self-perception and self-image and being authentic and selling authentically. And I just feel like we could have gone on and on forever. But Jeff has clients he had to attend to, so he had to stop when we stopped. Sadly.
I know. We're going to have him back. And again, this is, I think, another powerful episode about the importance of being real and who you are and standing in your value. And we have often talked about imposter syndrome and being authentic and all of those things. This is just another great example of just the different things that the 3 of us have experienced and how important it is to just be who you are. So sit back and listen to this awesome episode with Jeff Bajorek.
It's fine. Your mom was warned by the title of this podcast.
She was. Listen, and I married a woman she warned me about. So
Ooh.
It's all good.
You know what? You just saved us a lot of trouble, Jeff, because we normally ask that type of question. So tell us why.
Yeah, let's start the show.
Your lovely wife, and tell us her name. Why is she a woman your mother warned you about?
She challenges the status quo at almost every opportunity. She makes me think differently. She challenges me to be a better man every single day, which translates into every other aspect of my life, including my professional life. Her name is Laura, by the way, because you asked me that. That's not. There's no cause for alarm there, but she's amazing. I was talking recently. I don't know when this is going to go. So I was talking recently with a group of students at Kansas State University. They brought me in to talk to their ambassador group and do some coaching for one of their courses, and I was asked, what is the accomplishment that I'm most proud of? And I said, well, professionally, personally, what? And they said, yes. I said, okay. I'm going to start with my wife and my family. And so my wife and then my kids, and then those make everything possible. And there's no way I'd be sitting where I am today doing what I do today if it weren't for her encouragement, her support, her, like, what's the word I'm looking for? It is unflappable belief in me, and her insisting for me to challenge my own superstitions by reconciling them against what I know to be true. And just wouldn't be who I am without her. I'm not saying I'd be some shithead if I didn't have her, right? Like, she didn't pull me out of the gutter. I was never a loser or anything, but like she's the fuel. She's provided a lot of fuel.
You like me well up in tears. Like, I don't know. I must be emotional. I was just like reading that intro to a book a minute ago and welling up with tears. And Laura is just amazing. I love you, Laura. Thank you.
I want to marry a Laura.
I know.
Is she available?
Laura, find one who spells her name with an H, Laurah. That's how you know they're good.
Oh, wow.
Now I have to make sure she listens to this.
You will. Well, we can be gentle with you, or we can be rough. You have a choice.
There's a way I could answer that I'm not going to.
Oh, God.
But I'm going to let you set the tone, and I'm up for anything. How about that?
I think we should go rough because he's got a great voice, and he's obviously
such a
loves
sexy
his
voice.
Thank you. I was like, Laura would not want me to say that he has
I'm going to say it,
but he does.
His voice is sexy. And by the way, I want you to know, Rachel, like when we were interviewing Larry, I know somewhere, and I don't know where it was that you texted me, or maybe it was Nian. I don't know. Or maybe it was Ulysses.
No, it was me. I texted you that Larry's voice was a turn on too.
Yeah, his voice is like sexy. I mean,
but yours is also very sexy, Jeff. So we don't want to diminish that.
Just let me know.
You know, really what we're doing here is we are pre-screening and auditioning people to be part of our panel of experts at Outbound, because we are the women your mother warned you about live at Outbound. So apparently we are running...
Sexy voices need only apply.
We're running some kind of TV show. We are the Oprahs of Outbound, I've been informed.
Okay.
So you could end up on that show.
Wait a minute. Do I get to be Oprah too? Because it was you are the Oprah of Outbound, and now am I too? Because I'm the
Gail.
You're Stedman.
I can be Stedman or Gail.
Well,
I kind of liked being Oprah for a second. That's cool.
Right.
It's cool.
Jeb dubbed me the Oprah. Now, I was physically in his presence when he said this. So in all fairness, you were not top of mind, Rachel, but I put you in the group with me as the other Oprah.
Thank you.
Here's the thing. I think you should both be Oprah.
Good point.
Oprah is she not like the voice of the surrogate voice of your mother? Like Jiminy Cricket kind of in the back of your head? Like sometimes, you know, I feel like sometimes she's the wise elder, maybe not your mother, your grandmother, right? She's the wise, experienced one who just looks at things a different way and challenges you to do the same thing. Sometimes, like, it's really hard.
You know what?
Not that I haven't disagreed with her, but it's kind of hard to disagree with her, the way she carries herself and the way she looks at things.
Basically what you're saying is she's a woman your mother warned you about.
I know a couple of those.
I'm down with Jeff. We are going to stick to we are both the Oprahs.
Yay!
Yeah,
we are both the Oprahs. It is exciting to have you here because this is your first time being on our show. I've been on your show and I have been slack in having you here with us. Why not now? This is a great opportunity.
I'm not that memorable. I'm not a great guest.
You are.
I don't do this very often.
I reached out to Jeff on LinkedIn because I was doing my let's reach out to everybody on Outbound on LinkedIn thing. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'll be on your show in a minute. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. And he said, I'm not that memorable. And I think I think I would like you, Jeff, to remove that phrase of self-deprecation out of your vocabulary because you are memorable.
Well, thank you. Am I so memorable that the self-deprecation doesn't actually make you laugh? Or, I mean, does it make you feel bad? Or did it still valuable as a punchline?
Talk about a good interviewer.
I don't like when people self-deprecate at all. And that's coming from someone who is a long history of self-deprecation. Because I think we must build and this applies to women and probably more than men. I don't really know because I'm not a man, but I'm a woman. And last time I checked. And when we self-deprecate, that's the dialogue that's repeating in our minds. And we should be repeating the best possible dialogue in our minds. Like you wouldn't hang around with a friend and you wouldn't hang around with a guy that's like, this is Jeff. He's not very memorable.
You know what? That's such a great point. And I'm often reminded, my wife reminds me of this more often than anything, but I'm often reminded that the worst boss that I've ever had is often me. And that sometimes, I wouldn't allow someone else to talk to me that way. So there is that aspect of it. I will say this. I am, like you, turned off by excessive self-deprecation. Sometimes for me, and that was like our first ever interaction, right? So all you know now is self-deprecation. I use it very, very sparingly, and when I know it to not be true. Because for me, sometimes it's just a way of, for me, it's sometimes a way of, I don't want to say checking my ego, but like I have plenty of ego, and I try to keep it in check. And more often than not, I'm not always self-deprecating, but I try to remember that I need to be a little bit more humble. I think humility is a really admirable character. And I think in a lot of ways, I don't recognize how great I am at some things too. So it's a really weird kind of a spectrum. But I completely agree with you that self-deprecation, too much of it is bad news. It's just, who wants to hang around with that person who's always beating himself up or herself up? It's like, oh my God, are you begging for a compliment here? Like, do you need me to just give you a hug, or is that really a punchline? And I will keep that in mind.
Okay.
I think you've hit on.
So sorry, go Gina.
No, go ahead. No, finish.
I was going to say, so what we're really saying here is that you're just so awesome that you got to like bring it down a little. I like that.
Well, every once in a while, this is what I do know. I do know that there are a lot of people out there who think more highly of me than I realize. There are a lot of people out there who think more highly of me than I do. And every once in a while, a punchline like that helps me kind of...
I know what you're saying.
It helps me kind of acknowledge that without me feeling like my head is filling the room, right? Like, yeah, I don't walk around talking about myself that way, but every once in a while I'll allude to the fact that other people think of me that way as if I know. And we move forward.
I think that's really important to touch on for so many different reasons. Self-deprecation, especially in comedy, we do it a lot in comedy, and you can self-deprecate versus make fun of other people. So self-deprecation is good for that. And for those of us, especially, we're salespeople, but we are in front of a camera. We are bigger than life. We are our own, celebrities in our own world. And so we are watched by a lot of people. And we do, we hear this with the podcast, but I hear this as a speaker. I hear this as a trainer. People follow us and we don't realize that they follow us. And I think it's great to keep our egos in check so we don't become assholes, because it's possible that could happen. And at the same time, like you said, we don't always realize our greatness. And others do. And so we want to balance that too, because we want to own the greatness. And I think you probably see this as a sales coach too. A lot of the coaching I do, the biggest problem they have is confidence. And they come to me 100%. And that's what they say is their problem. They have confidence issues in a sales conversation. And they come to me and they go, I want to be like you. And I'm like, no, you want to be like you. But how do you do what you do? I'm like, it came with practice, number one, but it also came with people telling me I was great. That helped build the confidence.
At some point, you have to look around the room and realize the other people are in it. And you realize that the other people that are in it are looking at you the same way that you look at them. And at some point the light bulb has to go on. I mean, and it's slowly and surely coming to me. And I think some of it's because I've looked at some of the wrong metrics for what that is. And in other ways, I've looked around, I'm like, man, that person does something really good. And that person does something really well. And I think a lot of times we don't recognize that everybody else has some similar insecurities. And it isn't until you pull someone aside who you've been looking up to forever. And they're like, yeah, man, I tell you what, whoa. You have that side at all? Like, you were bulletproof until 30 seconds ago when you told me that. And the more layers of the onion you peel back, the more you learn and the more perspective you get. And I'm starting to peel back more of those layers.
Which then goes back to the self-deprecation that sometimes it is okay to show that. I was doing a presentation a couple days ago to a fairly large prospect. And you'll love this, Rachel. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to tear the Band-Aid off and I'm going to use this damn Mac Pro book that I've been avoiding because I just don't want to do it. And I'm like,
is that like a MacBook Pro? Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if that was the same thing.
So I'm like,
Wait, just so you know, Jeff, I've been berating her for years about getting a Mac.
So here I am making a sales presentation via Zoom on my Mac, and I can't get the fucking proposal to show. I cannot share my screen, and I don't know why it won't fucking share. And this is a really big whale.
Sweat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, this fucking MacBook, everyone wants me to get a goddamn Mac. Luckily, this person likes to jokingly call himself the president of the Gina and Rachel fan club. Don't know why, but he does.
So good people to have.
So the good news is the prospect is the president of the Gina and Rachel fan club. Now, there are several presidents of the Gina and Rachel fan club. I just don't let them know. I let them all think they're the only one. So I literally have to go to I'm like, and I'm trying to keep my cool because now we're in professional mode. All this other interactions we've been, joking around. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let me just go to the other computer. Now I have to send the proposal, the deck to myself, to the other computer. I have to log in to the other computer. I have to get on Zoom on the other computer. And then I got to pull up and share. And the guy's like, I love this. There's 2 camera angles of you.
The whole while you're doing this soft shoe, right? To try to distract them.
Winning.
And he's like, there's 2 camera angles of you. There's a point to this story. And I'm like, that is not a good angle. And I look at myself, I'm like, shit. And he goes, you're human. That's what he said. You're human. And I'm like, oh, you have no idea. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm just so happy to see, because if that were me, shit. I'm like, and so that's the point. People have to see that we're not perfect.
So this leads me into something, and I'll go back to where I was just the story I was telling earlier about the students, and I follow people to present to them. I follow people like Jeb Blunt. I follow people like Mike Weinberg. I follow people like Lee Saltz. Like, what? You asked me to come to Manhattan, Kansas. You okay. And so, I coach a couple of courses during the day, and then in the evening I've got their brightest and best have assembled for this meeting in a big classroom and everything. And they submitted questions ahead of time. And I looked at some of these questions and I was like, whoa, these are not like, hey, can you help me with my cold email template? Can you, how often, how many calls should I be making? These are not like fluff level. Not that these are fluffy questions. These are not surface level sales questions. I had a question. What have you learned in your career that you wish you would have known when you were 21? It's like, okay.
Funny you should say that.
So I leaned, I said, I was excited at that point.
Oh, good.
And so
we hope you have an answer for that.
Oh, I did. And so I looked, and I looked at Kelly Jackson, who was our host. And I said, hey, can we just do I hear myself talk every day. I don't need to stand up in front of a room of 25 people and put up another slide deck and highlight 3 chapters from my book. Like, they get plenty of that. And I do that all the time. I said, can we just do this fireside chat style? She said, yeah, that'd be great. So we went and did this whole thing for about an hour and a half. I did a little bit of a presentation at the beginning because I had some points I wanted to make, because there was certainly a purpose that I was brought in, right? There's a lot of COVID fatigue. If you're in college right now and you're thinking that this is the way things have to be, that everything you thought you knew as a young person has been turned upside down. So I had some remarks about that, and I had some remarks to close at the end about swagger, because I think that all ties everything together. But in the middle, I said, look, I hear myself talk all the time, but you didn't fly me in here to hear something canned. So let's have a conversation. If this was your question, I want to know whose it was so I can look right at you and deliver a message. Went to dinner with a few of the students after everything was done, and I said, okay, unvarnished feedback. What did you think? And they said, we really liked how real that was. So we had questions. We felt heard. You responded. We got an insight of what it's like to be in sales, not how to sell. We need that. It's like, oh, okay. How refreshing is that? Because that's what I do. And it's an interesting position that it puts me in. And there are a lot of people, I think, in your audience like this who will appreciate this. There's what you feel like you have to present yourself as, and then there's what you really do. And sometimes the perceived difference between those two things is way bigger than the actual difference between those two things. And it's really hard to put that into words, which makes it hard to reach your ideal client. And until you can get over your own ego and not just your ego, but your own insecurities, which is just the other side of ego, it's really hard to make that connection. It's really hard to be your best self, do your best work.
Hey, Warners, thanks so much for listening to this episode. If you haven't already hopped over to iTunes to give us a review, please do so. Yes, I'm actually begging, because you know what? If you give us a review, it takes like 30 seconds. It really helps more people find what we have to say. And if you're listening to this right now, you think what we have to say is valuable. So let's spread the love. Give us a review. Please, pretty please. Now back to the show.
Well, I'm going to go back to the beginning of this conversation or this podcast. I don't know if it ever officially started, but thank God.
Is this the show, by the way?
This is the show, by the way, and our producer will figure out how to edit it because he's amazing.
All the women your mother warned you about.
Welcome to the show. This is really how we roll, and I think we've also evolved into this in our third season, and why people like coming to the show, because we just kind of evolve into the conversation, which now I forgot the whole point of what I was going to say just before
the beginning of the beginning of the show.
The beginning of the show. The beginning of the show, when we're like, and you're like, I've got to decide here which, basically which persona you were going to take to be on this show.
How do you want it?
And the thing is how we want it is we want you to be you.
Okay.
And I think this is a really important learning lesson for everybody. This is a constant that comes up. You hit it on the head. You cannot get clear. And I'm like huge on this, especially because I teach a lot of Jeb stuff. And the problem I see over and over and over again is messaging. And it's the messaging in who we are, not just as an individual, but who they are as a company and the problem that they solve. And they get either too lofty with it. They don't get granular enough. They try to be all things to all people, and the buyer just can't wrap their head around that, because the buyer has very specific problems, and the seller is not taking the time to dig down deep into what the issue is. And so if we all just stand in exactly who we are and not be so freaking scared that people aren't going to buy from us because of who we are, think about the people who are going to buy from us because of who we are, not of who we are not.
Right.
And that's the constant that I see. So it's like, just show up as you. And, Jeb's third time on our show, which lives in infamy. And Jeb Jr. was like, literally told me he couldn't finish listening to the show because he was so embarrassed. He literally was at the gym. This was a couple weeks ago. He's like, I dropped a dumbbell on the floor. I couldn't listen anymore. I just did not want to listen to my father say the F word. And I mean, we had Jeb saying fuck, and it actually surprised us even. And this is before I went to work for him. he just became himself, right? And so now that I work for him, I know all the inner workings of him. He just became himself on that show, and there was something magical about it to me.
Yeah.
Especially now in hindsight that I work for him, is that somehow we disarmed him to be himself on our show.
If that's not part of your value
It
proposition.
was me. I did it. No, I'm just kidding. But there's two different presentations sometimes. Like I'm sure, Jeff, you're presenting to a bunch of corporate guys.
Yeah.
They expect you to be a certain
you gotta
amount of
modify.
lofty. And
Yep.
And then again, they might love it if you're just normal, because they're just normal sometimes too. So I guess,
It's interesting when you serve so many different industries and so many different types of clients like I do. It ties me up in knots sometimes. Like I have t-shirts with my logo on it because I like wearing t-shirts and I like my logo. But then that goes out on LinkedIn, and then the guy at the Fortune 500 or the woman, CFO or CRO at a Fortune 50 sees me and they're like, can I take this guy seriously? He wears a t-shirt to work. Meanwhile, there's somebody else thinking, oh, that's a really badass t-shirt. I want one of those t-shirts. I wonder if I reach out to him, maybe he'll send one to me. And I will, just shoot me an email. And it's such a weird thing to balance. And so I feel like, and it's interesting that you got Jeb to, kind of lighten up or I don't want to, that's not fair. I don't know Jeb well enough to throw shade at him like that, but you got Jeb to be himself.
We got him to say fuck.
And yeah. And
which is
like,
not uncommon. Shh.
I've talked to Jeb a couple of times. It doesn't surprise me that word's in his vocabulary. But very little surprises me. But when I listen to you just to kind of prep for this show, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, this is a place I can go and I can let loose. And all right, cool. And then I was like, my first instinct was, this is going to be really fun. My immediate next instinct was, ooh, how fun do I want to let it be? Because, and look, if my wife were right here, she'd grab a pair of headphones and a microphone, and she'd be right in with it, right? And the more that she got to know everybody here, the more fun we could have. And there's certainly a line of propriety with flirtatious behavior and things like that. Some of it's fun. Some of it's like, come on, Jeff, knock it off, right? But who's going to hear this? How careful do I need to be? How careful do I want to be? And that's that. There's always, I think, the personal brand that we all leave behind. You leave a digital trail of your thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and actions, whether you like it or not. And everybody's potentially watching. And that will make people clam up. That will make people get stiff. That will make people not show their best selves, which is what we should all be doing. And I think the real journey here is trying to figure out what that looks like. And sometimes you have to look in the mirror and you don't always like what you see. That hits different now than it did 10 years ago. And it was easier just to display perfection. Except nobody wants to buy from a machine.
Perfection.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's I go back to this little fireside chat thing. I'm like, okay, do you want me to stand up here and be sales expert guy? Or can I just be Jeff? And can I be inspired by the fact that you all have so much in front of you as college students with your entire lives in front of you? You have no idea how much you don't know yet. But even though you think you got it all figured out. And like, that's inspiring to me. Can I show how excited I am? Or should I launch into keynote presentation, Jeff, with a jacket and a pocket square and a nice pair of shoes and just pontificate?
Do you have a pocket square?
Oh, I love pocket squares. I don't like to wear ties very often because that's a little too buttoned up. I have some killer ties too, but I like the coat, the pocket square, a nice shirt. Yes.
I bet Laura likes the pocket square.
She digs the pocket square.
I like a
see
pocket
that.
square. I'd like a man with a pocket square.
You know, we had a guest on a while back, Michael Shine, who has a book called The Hype Handbook. And when I read it, it changed my whole thing and turned me into the way that I promote myself as the singing lender. And it became super fun to be myself. Because to your point, Jeff, I am in the mortgage industry right now. Mm-hmm. And like most lenders they're like suit with their arms crossed, and they're going to
Every
tell
single
you
one of them.
how amazing everything's going to be perfect and everything's going to go so smooth and perfect. And my marketing shifted after reading the Hype Handbook because I'm a performer. I don't fit in with that crowd. I never have. I felt uncomfortable trying to fit in. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to turn the volume up of the fact that I don't fit in and just be completely ostentatious. And now my messaging as it comes out is all about, hey, look, the mortgage process is hard. It's complicated. There's going to be some shit that blows up that's going to make you upset. It's going to be confusing. And I'm going to help you through that because I'm real. I understand. I've had bad credit. I know all the things. Like, let's do this. And it's just so much fun too, which is the most important.
Wait. You're leaving out a very important piece of information that you shared with me today.
Which part?
The email you sent me.
Oh,
this is important.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot about that. So, and literally, just to let people know, you're going to have doubts sometimes. Last night, I was literally in the shower like, maybe this is the wrong way to go. Maybe it's just too much. I don't know. Well, the CEO and founder of US Mortgage, who is an incredible leader, he's been in the mortgage industry forever and ever. And he sent me an email this morning thanking me for doing this creative marketing. And it was just very sweet, and it came out of the blue, and it literally made me, well, maybe that's why I'm all weepy today, but it made me well up in tears because I'm like, okay, it's cool. Like, I can be myself. Even like the CEO and founder in his big New York office, who is like the head honcho, is like, that's pretty awesome. And I appreciate you doing that.
This
really
is
cool.
huge. I literally cried when you sent me that email.
Oh,
Big deal.
it was cool.
It's a huge deal because of the work you've done to get there, the doubts you've had, the haters that you've had behind it, and you stayed persistent and resilient, and you kept doing it. And that Michael Shine book did help you of like embracing, this is who I am, and I'm going to stick with it. And either people are going to want to follow me and work with me, or they're not. And
it's fun.
And it's fun. And selling should be fun. And that's my point, is that stop worrying so much about, I mean, there are times where we have to adjust to the client to some extent. Yes, I agree with that. But do not abandon who you are. Let that lead you in the process, because what you're going to end up doing is actually attracting more business, repelling the business you don't want, which means you don't have to prospect so fucking hard. I truly believe that. I believe that you become a magnet for business when you stand in who you are.
It's important. It's important. So I wonder what the next barrier is, because let's think about who, I mean, Gina, you and I, we sell similar things, right? So let's think about who buys from us. Executives, directors, VPs, right? There is a VP out there who knows that what you're talking about in terms of authenticity and what I just went through, or I discussed, not going through, but what I just discussed, and know that that's going to resonate with their team. If they're emotionally intelligent enough, they know it's going to resonate with their team. But then they have to make that same admission. And if you are in a VP and have been a VP level if you're in a VP role and you've been there for any length of time, you probably have a facade that you need to break through. And that is the thing that concerns me. Not whether or not it's going to work. I don't have a client that I haven't resonated with on some level. But you have to get sometimes the person with the money to get over their own ego and break their own barriers down in front of their team, which is real hard to do because that's their entire career that they've built up in some cases.
Well, nobody told them that they could be themselves.
Right. Well, we're telling them right now, but we're a little late for some people.
and that's what we're doing right now, which an interesting kind of segue and story with this. This really became evident to me about standing in who I am because someone challenged me to make the choice. And this was almost 3 years ago because I distinctly remember it. I was in Dallas because I was doing a lot of business there. And I had just gotten back from Jeffrey Gitomer's studio, where I was in his studio doing an interview because I bamboozled my way into his studio. And I had just told him about Rachel and I wanting to do this show, The Women Your Mother Warned You About. And it was still just an idea. And he loved it. And he's like, what? We need more women podcasting. We need more women in sales podcasting. Why don't you join the Sell or Die Network, which brings us, the whole world comes back around because this is how you and I know each other, right?
Right.
So I start talking about this idea, and he's pushed it to the next level for us to come under his umbrella to join the Sell or Die Network. And you were part of the Sell or Die Network. And I was telling this person in Dallas who at one time worked for him, and he's an interesting brand of his own because not everybody likes him.
Right.
Right? A lot of women hate him. I love him. He's like a
Talking about Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a lot of people like, there are a lot of women that are turned off by him. So, because but he owns his persona. So that's
100%.
That is number one. So I was telling this person about my conversation with Jeffrey, because he's like, you should write some articles for me. You should write an article about bitch slapping people. And like, I can't remember exactly, but I believe the word bitch came up somewhere in there. And
that sounds
yeah, it sounds
right.
like Jeffrey. And I stood back for a second. I'm like, yes. And then I was like, oh shit. Can I do that? Should I do that? What will people think of me, and will people hire? Like, same thing you just talked about. And I went through this like crazy, like, what do I do? And I was telling this woman this in Dallas, and she goes, you need to make a choice. You need to take a stand. You're either going to be that woman or you're not. You have to make a choice. Which one are you going to be? And that was that moment for me. And even Rachel and I through the years have gone through things where she's like, hey, I can't believe you posted that on Facebook. I know you don't
sound like that. I thought I had a sexy voice.
And it's taken me a while to just slowly ease into. And then there was a day at Sales Gravy, right? Like, so now I joined Sales Gravy, and I'm trying to be all things Sales Gravy and Jeb Blunt, right? And he wants me to create a promotional video. So he's like, get in the way things work. Just go in the studio, get with so-and-so, shoot the video. You're the fun one. Just, we want a sizzle reel for you, blah, blah, blah. So I put together all these perfect little questions, and I go into the studio with Trey, my producer, and Jeb so happens to walk in after he's done training a client, and he's like, what the fuck is this? He's like, what do you, and he like starts look, he's like, what are these questions? This isn't you. He's like, that's it. Stop. I'm directing this. And he just in the moment just started like firing questions at me and coaching me into this. He's like, you're fun. Be fun.
Right now. Be fucking fun.
He's like, why should people work with you? No, really, why should people work with you? Why should people want you to train their employees? You're the fun one.
I've been doing video now for, 5.5 years. And it started really bad. But after I got my business started, it was like, oh, you got to be on video. So, all right, Jeff, let's get on video. I remember I have gone through different cameras. I'm in a basement office, right, with a drop ceiling. I've done so many things to change the lighting and adding light and all this other stuff. And I still am not happy with it, but it works. And I remember a time probably 6 months after I started, my wife looks at me and she says, Jeff, I see these videos. She's like, sounds like you. Looks like you. And I love you. But I would not date that guy. You've taken, I know you wrote it. I know you read it from a teleprompter. I know that like these even sound like things that you would say, but that's not the guy that I love looking at every day. That's not the guy I look forward to talking to every day. Would you please stop trying so damn hard and just be Jeff? I got rid of the teleprompter. I allow myself to stutter. I allow myself to sometimes froth at the mouth a little bit and get so worked up and unpolished that you can tell how passionate that I am. And I will rant. I will lose my train of thought sometimes and then say, oh, okay, I just lost my train of thought there, but back to the point, and all in a 4-minute video sometimes. And I get responses. I get comments on social media. I get emails, I get things like that. Like, I love how passionate you are, Jeff. This is clearly something that you're into. Like, this is good. I think you really hit me.
What, Jeff, would be a subject that could get you frothing at the mouth?
That is a loaded question. What am I working on right now? I think sales did not change because of COVID, and I think the sales profession will be better off for COVID, even though, full disclosure, with all the sensitivity to people who has been absolutely dog shit terrible for recently, I understand that. But the sales profession in the long term, you're allowed to argue with me, but you're also entitled to be wrong. And yeah, those are things that I'm really thinking about right now, that I get pretty fired up about. I don't have a problem taking a stance, but it's, yeah, what really gets me? I can't sell right now because I can't get face to face with my customers. Give me a break. Are you begging me to get frothy here?
Yes.
Is that what this is, Rachel?
Yeah.
Froth it up.
I don't
Froth.
know. Frothing at the mouth.
Don't forget, you're interviewing to be on the Oprah and Oprah show.
The Oprah and Oprah show from Outbound, sponsored by Sales Gravy. Yes. I don't know. I'm not, it's tough to do on the spot.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. I just like the image of you passionately frothing at the mouth.
Oh, no. And it happens. It's tough to shift gears from being like really introspective and kind of like, no, really, let's get vulnerable here. And then all of a sudden, all right, Jeff, can you get like really fired up now? Like, okay, let me just drop this transmission going from reverse into fifth. Yeah, good. That's good. One of the reasons that I think COVID was really good for the sales profession long term is that it knocked people out of their routine, knocked them on their heels a little bit, and it exposed a lot of clowns for some bullshit excuses. And don't tell me that you can't make a call. Don't tell me that you can't sell to your customers because you can't get face to face with them about it to discuss. Well, what was it that you were going to say to them in the same room as them that you couldn't say on the phone or over a Zoom call like this? Like, can you please help me understand this? Like, is it you that were making those sales, or was it the corporate credit card buying the whatever it was that you bought for this customer that was going to make the sale? And so if you can't sell face to face, or if you can't sell except face to face, you can't sell. I hate to break it to you. You can't do that. Shh. Like, give me a break. And you get the excuses. You get
Well, that goes hand in hand with using the pandemic objection as a valid objection.
See, the pandemic is a dangerous thing because it's legit. Mm-hmm. Like, let's not pretend that it didn't happen, and let's not pretend that it didn't have an impact on businesses.
Right.
But don't put an excuse in your customer's mouth. Don't spend their money for them, by the way. Pandemic, this is a lot. This is a big ask here. I don't know if I can. It's their money. You owe it to them to at least ask them for it. If you really believe in what you do, you owe it to them to ask them for their money. It's a weird way to look at things, but I like it. And just because the pandemic affected you, or just because the pandemic created a level of uncertainty, you need to remind yourself of what you know to be true. You always need to remind yourself of what you know to be true. And you have a job to do. One, you have a job to do. I don't care if it's harder now. It's still a choice. Right now, it might be one of a very small amount of choices that you have, and I will respect that. However, if you're going to do it, do it. And stop thinking about what you can't do. Focus instead on what you can. And you still have solutions to problems that people have. You still owe it to yourself, your company, and your prospect to get in front of them and explain the way that you can help them and dig a little bit deeper into the issues that they're having. Because the pandemic also did something else. It gave people a lot more time to talk about the problems that they were experiencing. A lot of people did not realize the gold they had in front of them. You know, I like to say too, when you tell me I cost too much, that's a buying signal. It's not an objection. You just invited me to present to you why I'm worth more than the other guy.
That right there, Warner's, is one hot nugget. That is a hot nugget right there.
It took a little bit of frothing to get there. It was good.
A little bit. I still feel weird. I still feel weird about shifting gears, right? Like it felt like a non sequitur. But hey, listen, I'm trying to be a good guest. I'd like to be invited
We're
back.
Unpredictable.
Welcome to the Women Your Mother Warned You About. Hey, I specifically have been trained to disrupt things. So
yeah, there's no script here, clearly. I just like the frothing at the mouth image.
And we like to disrupt.
Let's go back to that truth bomb that just came out, though.
Okay.
The price objection is something that I think pretty much every salesperson struggles with. And as you just pointed out, Jeff, during the pandemic, that is a greater fear for salespeople. Oh, everybody's hurting right now.
I'm afraid to sell to them because I'll be insensitive. So I'm just not going to sell.
You make a really good point.
Here comes the froth. Here comes the froth. I got him. It's coming out. It's coming out. He's pounding his head on the microphone. That'll be a great video to send out, Ian.
Most objections, at least on the surface, do not have anything that will eventually relate to their motive to buy. That's a huge disconnect. Oh, I get the price objection. I get the timing objection. I get the whatever. Okay. So are you saying right now, and those are easily the two of the first few objections you're going to do. They're the easiest one. Just get out of my face. You cost too much. I don't have the time to talk to you. Let's move on. If you look at that salesperson who just walked away and you say, okay, so do you believe that if you cost the right amount and if you called at exactly the right time, then you would be done selling? Most of them would say no. A couple of them totally delusional, and they think they'd say yes. And a smaller amount might be right because you get lucky 2% of the time. I used to get objections all the time. I used to sell to orthopedic surgeons, and we'd have a new implant out, and they would ask us, do you have a study on long-term data? And the first couple times, like, no, I don't. Okay, well, when you get a study, you come back and you talk to me. We had a new product. That meant that if I fell for that objection, I was not going to call on this person for 10 years, actually 12 years, because it takes a while to compile the data, put it in a study, get it published, and bring it back. He knew we didn't have 10-year data because it was a new product, so it's a stupid thing to even ask for. And even then, in 10 years, I'm going to have 3 new generations to this product. This product's not even going to exist anymore. We won't sell it. And now, okay, so majority of salespeople walk out of the room and they go back to their company and say, I can't sell them because we don't have a study. So give me a study and I'll be able to call on our customers. What?
Is that how they sound?
Well, that's how Gittimer would make them sound, and you know this.
That's true.
The sucky salesperson voice.
It's one of my lasting impressions of Jeffrey. And it's come on, give me a break, right? Like it. But most objections don't tie into their eventual motives to buy, and most objections are very flippant. They're very off the cuff, and they invite you to lean in. This is what I love about the price objection. That is, if you complain about my price, that suggests that if the price were right, you would like to buy it, which means you have some emotional attachment to what it is that I'm selling. You're interested in it. We've all done it. We've all gone through the department store, and that's a really nice sweater over there. And you flip over the 10. If it were like $10, you would take it. Actually, if it were $10, you'd probably be skeptical of it. You might leave it on the shelf. But if it was on sale and you understood that it was worth something and you felt like you were getting a deal, you'd buy it, right? Most times I flip stuff over. I'm like, oh yeah, when I grow up one day, okay, and I move on. But there's an emotional attachment at that point. There's momentum. I have a friend who says it's really hard to steer a parked car. So with momentum, with inertia, I can steer that. I have something I can work with. Someone who just stonewalls me and isn't interested at all, that's a much more difficult proposition. So give me the price objection. Give me the timing objection. Give me something that you think is fluff and you are just going to move, try to brush me off, like you said there, Gina. Yeah, I'll take that, because most of the time that suggests that not only do I have potential to do some work here, but particularly in the case of price, you're inviting me to explain my value, which is all any salesperson has ever asked for an opportunity to do. The hard part is getting anybody to listen. But when they lean in and say, well, you cost too much. I'm like, oh, sounds like you're leaned in. Can I talk about why I cost too much? That's actually my favorite thing to talk to, because I do this, and this that other people don't do. And as a result, you're going to see this, and this. And I think if you're going to make any investment, you're really going to want to see this. And the problem with you underinvesting is that you're not going to get the results you're looking for, and you will still have spent the money. So, hey, look, I may not be the right choice. We're not there yet. But if you're leaning in and asking me why I cost so damn much, I'd love to talk to you. I'm not sure we have enough time today, though, because I really like talking about it.
This just happened with a client that I'm coaching, and she does listen to this show. So I'm not going to name you, but you'll know who you are when I talk about it. And she loves me, so it's okay. And I love you too. You know who you are. So I had given her this challenge to close X amount of deals. I gave her a challenge to close X amount of deals by a certain time. And I got back in her next session, and she closed a deal, and but she hadn't gotten the credit card yet, and she hadn't signed the contract yet. And I was like, whoa. Let's first talk about commitment and psychological commitment, and you need those things. And then I'm like, so tell me, like, what was it? What'd you sell? Long story short, she sold this person a fraction of what it was she does. It was a coaching package, and she sold it as a fraction of the package at like one coaching session a month. And I said, why bother? And she said, well, she said that, I asked her what would be a no-brainer. And she said, if I spent less time with you. And I go, do you realize the purpose of coaching? It's to actually spend more time with you, not less time. I said, how effective will you be in that less time? And at the end, will she actually value it? Because she's not going to experience your amazingness because she didn't pay for it, because she said what she was saying was, I can't afford you. And that's when you go, come back when you can.
Yeah.
And of course, and I'm sorry, I know you're listening. I mean, it was an aha for her. She got it. But but what she came back to was like, oh, this is my own money story, because I was once where she is and I relate to that. And so I fell into that and gave her that. She's like, do I go back now and tell her? I go, no, now you sleep with it and you learn from it and you follow through with it and you do it and you never do it again.
I've made that mistake. And,
we know that you got to go, and we really don't know what the theme of this podcast was with you. It was just fireside chat with Jeff, it appears. You were going to be at Outbound in Atlanta with us. And what is something that that we can expect from you at Outbound?
Real. You can expect real. You can expect, like, I'm delivering one of the elite workshops on Friday, and
me too. Well, you know what? We're battling. We have the same time slot. That's okay.
Can we expect a pocket square?
Oh, you can expect at least one pocket square. You can expect me to be real. You can expect me to be reactive. Actually, I've got plenty of stuff to talk about, but the workshop's only an hour, so it's going to be. We're going to do a surface level on the 5 forgotten fundamentals of prospecting, and we're going to go deep with whatever who's in that room wants me to go deep on. And because that's more fun. Read the book. It's only 50 pages. Like, I wrote the kind of book that I like to read. It's 50 pages long. It's got pictures in it. So there's a lot that we can cover, and I can go in any different direction, but to combine a 4-hour workshop into an hour doesn't make any sense. So we'll hit all the highlights, and then we'll go deep with the audience and where they want to go. So that'll probably end up being around creating tension. But because that's where they typically go. But
Awesome.
that's what you can expect from
We're
me.
excited to see you at Outbound. It's been fun having you on the show. We could talk to you forever. You probably should come back.
Can we do this again? Because you didn't get to the rapid fire questions at the end. Or
No, we
anything.
didn't. But before you leave, tell us where everybody can find you if they want to reach out to you and get your book with pictures.
Awesome. Thank you. JeffBajorek.com. And that's my website, and it's great. I just had it redone, and I'm really proud of it. But what I'm also really proud of is a community that I'm building at rethinkthewayyouSell.com. And it's free. There are some premium options in there if you want, but the free platform itself is really cool. I have a couple of courses in there, and we're having fun. So
Awesome. Before you go, and we'll do our wrap up and end this show. We'll let you go. But one last question, real fast, that is part of our rapid fire. But I want to put you on the spot. We need to know how you define sexy.
curves.
Oh, thank you.
Is that the answer you're looking for?
I'll take it.
I like to. I thought about it. I thought about this actually because I did my homework, but I want to preface this by saying confidence, but confidence can mean different things to different people. Mm-hmm. Confidence from the standpoint of ownership and from power. Yeah. And like when you own yourself, when you own the material, that level of confidence is something I call swagger. And I referred back to it very often because salespeople need it. But the same thing that makes salespeople effective is really what makes people sexy. So I think I'm going to say swagger.
Love it. Well, you got a lot of swagger, my friend. So thank you for being here.
Best.
We can't wait to see you and your Pocket Square at Outbound in Atlanta.
Awesome. Thank you.
It was so awesome having Jeff on our show, Warners. And thank you for listening to another episode of The Women Your Mother Warned You About, sponsored by Sales Gravy. We love being in the gravy. For more information about our show, go to womenyourmotherwarnedyouabout.com. Check that out. And hey, maybe you want to improve some of your prospecting. Check out Sales Gravy University while you're at it too. I'm Gina Tremarco. You can find out more about me at our website or ginatremarco.com. And for Rachel,
you can find me all over social media as The Singing Lender or at the website of the same name, and for fitness, Ultra Fit Lifestyle. And be sure to head over to iTunes and drop us a review. We would so appreciate it so we can spread more love and knowledge to more people.
Oh, and one more thing, Warners, if you are thinking about coming to Outbound, we highly recommend it. And you can do it virtually too. So go to outboundconference.com and you can use a special code to get a little money off. Warners 100 is that code. We hope to see you at Outbound.
Bye, Warners.
This really will get serious soon.
Yeah, it doesn't have to. I don't think anybody wants it to be serious.